So
Oh, I thought you were talking about the YouTuber. Shout out to him.
right, shout out to Super GT. No, the actual racing series
Okay.
in Japan, they're going carbon neutral.
Mm,
So right after last week was their last round at Motegi. So this week they actually tested carbon neutral fuel
fuel,
that's planned to be
dude.
used next year.
I heard that MotoGP was doing the same thing. They're
Yeah.
using some sort of fuel that you could burn it in the same engines.
hmm
However, it's carbon neutral in terms of the emissions.
See, I'm glad you're speaking on it
Hmm.
because I think you know a little bit more than me. Because I read it and I was like, I'm not really too like up to date on what carbon neutrality or whatever fuel it
Oh
is. You
man,
know what I'm
I can,
saying?
I can, dude, I can show you. Yeah, we can get into that if you like. I'll pull up something if you want a screenshot. I'll show you some stuff.
Oh, definitely. We definitely need to, man. But because the thing is, they're running like so. Apparently, I'll just go ahead and read it. All right.
Yeah,
So
go ahead. Yeah, yeah,
the,
go ahead.
the GTA has announced its Super GT Green Project 2030, aimed to serve as an environmental roadmap for cutting total CO2 emissions resulting from the entire Super GT series in half by the year 2030. So by 2030, basically, they want to cut their whole CO2 emissions in half. As part of the efforts to make the entire series carbon neutral from 2023, plans call for all participating cars to use the CNF derived from non-fossil fuel-based biomass. And in these tests, the GTA R100 CNF, produced by Germany's Haltermann Carls, was used by all the participating cars, and comparisons were also made with the regularly used gasoline fuels.
Okay, so wait a minute. So just for clarity's sake, right? They ran this other fuel in the same cars, same engines, same engine management systems, same everything, right?
Yes.
Okay.
They also ran the regular used gasoline fuels
Right, for comparison.
for comparison.
Got it. Okay.
But then they had test conditions. This test day was blessed with clear skies from morning, and participating in this day's test were 13 GT 500 class cars. Also, there were 10 GT 300 class cars scheduled to participate. Let's see what it says. In the morning test session, the number 23 Moto Altec Z recorded the fastest time among the GT 500 class cars with a lap of 137.28. The second fastest time was 137.3. To tell you the truth, I had no uncomfortable feelings using the carbon neutral fuel. The GT 500 car has what you could call an aggressively designed engine with a lot of advanced technologies applied in it. So I thought that changing the fuel used would result in some significant changes, but in fact, the changes were so small that I wouldn't have noticed them if I hadn't been told about the fuel change. Of course, there were careful adaptations made to the mapping fuel injection program, but I didn't have any uncomfortable feelings about the acceleration response we drivers want. I thought that was rather incredible. Nismo has already done some bench testing, and we had used carbon neutral fuel in this year's Super Taiko competition, so I believe we are able to use data gained from those experiences. So I guess the ECU, the ECU had to be programmed accordingly,
Yeah, I
right?
was gonna say from a driver standpoint, what you do is, again, we were talking about the Motec stuff, right? You give the engineer the feedback, and what they do is they change the mapping. Now, I think the overall takeaway, what I'm getting from this here, and I'm gonna try to uh, toe the line here. I don't want to get too, let's just say, political, right? Because there's a lot of this climate change stuff, right? And a lot of the climate change mandates, particularly with regards to the automotive industry. Let's just say in California, for example, right? They're trying to all out ban the sale of gas vehicles, stuff like that. We had a cart track, the main one we were talking about on the phone earlier, shut down. How that's affecting um, motorsport on let's just say the ground level, right?
Yeah.
Um, and when you start to look at the trickle down, or let's just say in this case, trickle up effect, a lot of these proposed, mandates to kind of just get rid of traditional vehicles, stuff like that. Um, it's kind of troubling. Okay. I think the happy medium in all of this is utilizing something like a carbon neutral fuel. Okay. Where we can kind of find that happy medium where people can, us gearheads can, but can continue to pursue motorsport at this level right here, right? And there still be a uh, race on Sunday, sell on Monday aspect to motorsport, right? That's kind of always what this has always been anyway, right? You watch the races on Sunday and then you say, you know what, damn it, I want that BMW. What was that? That BMW, what was that? Was that an M4 that was up there?
Yeah,
I want
M4.
that M4 right there, right? And the next thing you know, you're at the BMW dealership at the end of your work shift on Monday saying like, yeah, I want that, right? So that's always kind of been the part of not only the appeal of motorsport, but the marketing angle from a manufacturer standpoint. Okay, so where do they get the benefit of putting these budgets together to have these race teams, fund the development of the race cars, the engineering, and all that kind of stuff? If from this weird sort of global industrial standpoint, we're trying to stamp these type of cars out and stuff like that, right? Because we feel as though is that like the stuff that comes out the exhaust pipe is just, you know, is just going to heat the earth up, to the point where we're all just going to cook. I think it's kind of bogus. I really do think that, utilizing something like a carbon neutral fuel is a happy medium where we can continue to have a traditional form of motorsport. Matter of fact,
I would
it,
hope that's the case, though.
well, let's do this. Let's take this one step further. If this right here proves to be viable, then here's what I'm going to make a case for. If that's the case, I'm going to make a case for F1 going back to V10 engines.
Would they be running a carbon neutral fuel?
Yes,
So what was the reason for them to get out of V10 motors, anyways?
because we had to go into this whole hybridization era.
And that was for environmental
What, climate
purposes?
change reasons, right?
Climate change. Okay.
Right, because we have to do all of this. Right, this is kind
Yeah.
of this is where it's, and I'm not even saying that hybridization's bad. See, I think that there is an application for all of this in all forms of motorsport. Dude, I like Formula E. That's purely electric. Dude, I got plenty of electric karting footy on YouTube. If you guys think I'm BSing, I love electric, dude. I'm in the micromobility sector in terms of profession. That's small electric vehicles. I like electric, hybrid, I like traditional. And I think if we're going to go into this whole climate change era, then in order to keep traditional motorsport, i.e., naturally aspirated, turbocharged, supercharged vehicles, stuff like that, um, as disciplines of motorsport, we need to utilize a carbon neutral fuel.
Yeah.
Sorry for the extra long spiel, but
No, no, but I understand what you're saying, and I
you know what
agree
I'm
with you.
saying?
No, I agree with you because if we switch over to the carbon neutral fuel as opposed to just doing away with just combustible motors, it's allowing the cars that we actually love and are scared that we're going to lose to still thrive and still
Yeah,
be here. Now I
yeah,
like that. I agree with that. I think that's a good happy medium.
yeah.
And I'm actually good. I'm glad that they're doing these tests. And I didn't think about that as far as the V10 situation. I actually did not even know
Yeah, if we
anything
get
about that.
if carbon neutral fuel is a thing, right? And traditional cars are able to perform at the same clip, just with some clever engine mapping, then I think Formula One should go back to V10.
That'd be cool.
That would be dope as hell.
That would. Yo, also there was one guy, Yukio Sasahara, the number 16 Red Bull NSX. He said something that was a little different than Ronnie, but he gave a more direct answer. He said, "I believe that at this stage the adjustments are not perfect, and I feel that the power output is a little less than with normal gasoline fuel. However, the feeling was more natural than I had expected. Of course, there's still a lot of measures to be taken. Also, I was a bit conscious of the smell. It may be because this is the first time, but I was conscious of the smell from other machines' exhaust in the pit area. So he spoke about the power. He said there's less power with carbon neutral fuel. That's what he
Mm-hmm.
felt. Now, both
Okay.
these cars, Ronnie in the Altec Z, it's GT500, and Yukio, and he's an NSX, that's GT500 too. Now, here's one more other GT500 guy, Harioki Ishihara of the Zent Tsurumo GR Supra. I started out carefully, but I didn't feel anything particularly unusual or bothering. I held back on the power at first, but the only thing I felt was the upshift point was a bit deeper than it had been in yesterday's race. But after that, I felt that I could drive without anything bothering me. I almost couldn't feel that I was doing a carbon neutral fuel test. Since they had made some adjustments based on the bench test, there was no problem in terms of drivability. We got one more guy, Ryuichiro Tomita with the 10X GTR. He said there were no big problems that I felt, but I did feel that there was little less power and some negative effects in the feeling of the drive. Now, this makes me think, are the differences that they're expressing, do they,
Mm-hmm.
is it only because of the actual machine that they're in? Because this guy in the GTR is speaking of less power and some negative effects in the feeling of the drive. But then somebody else was saying that they didn't feel any difference in the power. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to
Yeah.
see if there's a difference between GTR and the NSX
See,
or the
that's what.
Supra. You know?
Well, I was gonna say that's what makes all of this interesting, right? Because maybe because some cars might have like an aerodynamic advantage over others, right? See, so you're not gonna really. So the difference is so subtle that you may not even feel it because the aerodynamics actually make up for it, versus other cars where you're gonna totally feel the difference, right? Because you're getting different feedback from drivers based on the car,
Yeah. And they've been
right?
in different cars. Each one I've read has been with different cars though. It's been a Z, a NSX, a Supra, and then that
Yeah.
was a GTR.
Yeah, and you get and the drivers are saying different things,
Yeah, they are.
right? See, so it's sort of like, okay, some of this could be aerodynamics related. Some of this could be power plant related. Hell, you know what? Drivetrain related even, right? There could be a few things here, but that's why I was like, what you do is if you set the car at a baseline and then you run the two fuels, then the driver can give you basically, and the data will give you the difference, right? It'll give you the variance. And then from there, that's where the engineer comes in and says, okay, how do we compensate, right? But I think that if you can come up with a way to compensate for the difference, then you know what? I think we have a case for keeping traditional motorsport in place and not trying to get rid of it and just go full electric because we're carbon
Whoa.
neutral at this point.
Well, yeah, that's what they're working at. Speaking of compensating, Seiji Ara with the number 7 Studi BMW. I tried things like adjusting the flow of the air in the cockpit, but I was still bothered by the exhaust smell. Also, compared to the round 8 race, I felt that there was less feeling of power during acceleration in the middle stages. But I think this will change with the adjustments we make from now on to compensate for these effects. And
Boom.
since we are already talking with Germany BMW about things now, I think we will be able to correct things with the settings. What's
Yeah.
more, there are no problems in other areas. But see, here's the thing. I mean, it's great. I mean, of course, we already know that there's going to be a little bit of hiccups that they have to compensate for and make changes because this was the very first test.
Yeah.
So with that, that's one thing we got to keep in mind. This was the very first test. Now, by the time the very first race, they'll have this down pat to where it won't even be a problem. You know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude. That's gonna be some stuff. Engine mapping is soft. It's gonna be that, like, timing, cam lobe